Go ahead.
So my big screen, as soon as somebody talks, I get the big screen on that person.
Yeah, so if
Yeah.
people want to see Bill as big screen, you can go up to the view, like the little view menu item up top in the toolbar and just say speaker. If it's on gallery, then everyone's little, and then the person talking has a box around him. And if you do view speaker, then the person who starts talking will get big. Will be sort of full screen. The other people will be on a bar up top.
All right, so I guess I should say something.
Yeah, so people put it on speaker, and now you're nice and big, and then you got the
I
floor.
just wanted to get a little bigger so he could see what I'm using, and it's not super expensive, but it does a nice job. And I guess we
Uh,
can't.
Jim, that red thing like to the left of Bill's head is the 533 camera.
Okay.
That's the ZWO makes it. The model number is ASI 533. M is in Michael, C is in Charlie, Pro.
Okay, I've been happy with what, 44 mini from
174, I
ZWO,
think.
174 mini. I've had a ball with it, but I'm ready for a little color. It's a bigger camera than what I have. And you said it was
And
cool.
this is a cool camera.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
And on
That
the
should be fun.
opposite side from the guide scope, there's an electronic focuser, and then there's the ASI Air Plus here.
Okay.
Bill, can you move that a little bit?
That's the guide camera.
Can you move it a little bit to your left?
Move what to my left?
Your other left. The whole setup.
Yeah, this is I don't know what you want to see. So
I just wanted to see the back end of the scope and the camera you have there.
With all the reflection off of the main body of the big tube, everything else is dark.
yeah, I'm trying to hit this with an LED wide beam.
Where's your focuser?
Focuser is over here towards my stomach.
And now I'm blinded. There you go.
Maybe if I pull this lamp up, that would be better.
Yeah, just straight down.
Yeah, that works.
Bill, what's the advantage of guiding as opposed to taking a bunch of subs?
Well, first of all, I'll program this thing through the ASI Air Plus to take X amount of image, sub exposures. Um, I just let it run for some hours and then it'll shut itself down and park itself and, pretty much automate it.
It's interesting because I have a scope similar to your Orion guide scope, and I have the 174 mini. And if I buy the color camera, I have the option of guiding if I drill a couple holes.
Okay, well,
It's interesting.
for astrophotography, getting into guiding is almost a must. Um, it greatly improved what I was doing once I started that. I'm very fussy with my polar alignment. I'm usually on a clear night, I'm within 1 or 2 arc seconds, and on a night when seeing is not the greatest, I try to get within 5. And the mount that I have is dead on all the time, so I've got really good guiding. Never any problem.
My problem is my telescope isn't exactly aligned with my mount. So I could be perfect polar alignment, but I'm not.
That's a common problem. Just
Just
takes
part of-
practice.
part of the answer to that question is, why guide versus take a lot of subs? They're not mutually exclusive. It's just more a matter of how long your sub exposures are. So the shorter your sub exposures, the less need there is for guiding. But once you get above, I don't know, 15, 30 seconds, even with good polar alignment, guiding starts to
Yeah, my
have
max is
benefit.
10 seconds.
Yes, if you're doing 10-second subs and you have decent polar alignment, there's a good chance you wouldn't need guiding. But if you're going to start to go up, a minute subs, 2-minute subs, or something like that, then guiding can certainly be beneficial and is arguably necessary after a certain period of time, like say like a minute or so.
I've got the advantage of only a 24-inch focal length, so I can get away. But the telescopes I'd like to move to have a longer focal length, so everything gets harder in terms of polar alignment
Correct.
guiding.
Correct. And if you're shooting wide field, like with a camera lens, something like that, then you almost never need, you never need guiding. It's the kind of thing where, if you're doing reasonably short subs with a wide angle lens. So, like you had mentioned one of yours, though, you're looking at getting a 8-inch f6. So now you're 48-inch.
Yes, double.
So that's where, if you're not guiding, you can get into trouble very, very quickly, even with shorter sub exposures.
One of the other advantages is, of course, that you can dither, which I guess is a little less of an issue with these, cooled dedicated cameras. But using a DSLR, they tend to be a little bit noisier. And if you take, flats and bias and darks, you still get some residual fixed pattern noise, which is remedied a little bit better if you do dither, Eventually, I guess dithering will go out the window as the cameras become less and less noisy. But that tends to make a difference. I think I notice a fairly large difference. I'm shooting from Bortle 7 as well. And I think that the dithering really has helped my my images, over and above just, taking random shots, but
Yeah, I have now I don't have I don't do any guiding, but I do dither because with Sharp Cap you can do dithering and you can actually reset the image based on X number of pixels and time. So like I'll set it to dither like once a minute or once every 2 minutes, and it'll dither for me. And I tell it how many pixels move. I'll say like 40 pixels. And it'll move at 40 pixels. So I don't need a guide for that. And I shoot short subs, so that gets rid of some of the problems that Gary was talking about with the longer focal lengths, where you get into trouble a lot quicker because that time you can do it without guiding gets much shorter with a long focal length. But the Sharp Cap also has a recentering feature. So even if you're slowly kind of drifting off a little bit, maybe even like 100 pixels or so, you can say if it drifts more than 20 pixels, go and recenter the object. So it stops stacking, moves it, recenters it exactly, and goes on again. So you can do lots of short subs for forever, really, as long as you want to stack thousands of frames.
Join the club.
if you're not guiding at all, and let's say you're just using a tracker or something like that, there's a school of thought that says, if the image is slowly drifting across,
It has
the
dithering.
sensor, it's kind of,
right? Effectively,
you're doing,
dithering.
there
It's
is that school of thought.
self-dithering.
Yeah, but there's others that say that it's worse than doing nothing. So the opinions are all over the.
I agree with you, dude. Dithering really changed everything because I had that fixed pattern noise, and if I would shoot even like 10-second subs, but if I shot for like half an hour, I'd have these. I was shooting. I first noticed this when I had a black and white camera on, but you can notice like green, like kind of grayish, faint grayish stripes kind of going, you know, and it was just
right.
there. It was really annoying.
Walking noise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
walking noise. Yeah, I had
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So, but when I dithered, it instantly went away. And so it
yeah.
was really, and
So
it's,
do you want to give a 2-minute explanation of how and what dithering is?
oh, it just basically it's you're moving the camera slightly, the telescope slightly in kind of a random, you know, right ascension declination. It goes maybe this time around it'll move up several pixels in right ascension and move a few south in declination. And then after a certain period of time, minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it'll move the camera again, the telescope again, randomly to a different, you know, X and Y, and it may be more in different numbers. So it just kind of levels things out. It kind of, you know, so you
Except for
get,
imperfections in the chip.
yeah, it's pattern noise in the chip.
So then when you stack them, all of that works itself out.
Yeah, it
Yeah, it
smooths right
basically
out.
averages down all those
Mhm.
pattern noises and the random noises and stuff average themselves. Even hot and cold pixels
Yeah.
will basically go away because when you stack, the software that does the stacking has noise rejection type of uh, mechanisms that they use. There's all different types of noise rejection. So if there's like a hot pixel and you're moving that camera around, basically, you're moving the
Then
scope.
it'll look like noise.
Yeah, it'll basically say, hey, there's a hot pixel here. Wait a minute, I don't
Yeah.
see any hot pixels anywhere else. That must be an outlier. Get
Yeah.
out here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the software, whatever software program we use, that has, many of them have a function for dithering, and the software itself has like this random number generator. So it just out of the blue, I guess, or out of this random number, that's how it figures out where the dither. So it dithers in a non-pattern way, I guess. It is totally random. But that's
I've been
controlled by the
using
software.
the ZWO software, which is really simple, but I have downloaded SharpCap, and it's probably time for me to step up to the plate.
Right. Well, the ASI Air, if you're using it, has a dither function in it. Are you using ASI Air?
I think so.
No, you
Okay.
don't have
Software
ASI
that-
here.
yeah,
You're using the
ASI is the
AS
software that
yeah.
came with the camera.
Yeah, that's
Using
called
the ASI
ASI
suite.
Studio. The ASI
Oh,
Air
okay.
is a
I'm
piece of
sorry.
hardware. That's a physical box that controls, that has
It's a mini
data
computer.
acquisition and
Oh, okay. I
another
don't have
type
that.
of processing software in it. And one of the functions is dithering.
It plate solves too and things like that. It's got a lot of
That
features.
was the box when Bill was showing his setup. That was the box that was on sort of his right, like on the left side of your screen. There was a little box kind of flat.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to plate solve when I go to longer focal length.
Hey Lou, can you make me co-host again? It keeps kicking me.
Yeah, did you guys see where ZWO came out with the camera that has the off-axis camera included, plus ASI Air is built into the
Yeah.
camera now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All in one for less than
the
2K.
2600 Duo and the ASI Air had a baby.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're pricing it competitively because
Yeah,
that's the original price of the 2600 MC Pro was $19.99.
yeah, it's the same price, and you get
And this
ASI
is the
Air
same-
for free.
Yep.
I was going to show you guys a
Watching
picture of
draw-
dithering, why you want to dither.
Oh, there you go.
So this
There
is what
it is.
happens when you don't dither, you get the walking noise.
Yeah.
So I had a dead pixel here. And while yes, you could let it drift, and that drifting a little bit is technically dithering, it has to be random, exactly
Yeah.
what you just said. Otherwise, you'll get these lines. So you can see these like smears. This is before
Smears?
without dithering.
That's really annoying, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're really a pain to get out in terms
Yeah.
of from a post-processing.
Well, I
standpoint.
wouldn't say that you even could.
There are techniques. I mean, people have even back in the Photoshop days when DSLRs were real popular, and DSLRs are very known for having what's called banding noise, where you get these large bands, and a lot of that's dependent on how the chips are read out, and the data's, you know, taken from the wells and turned into numbers. And there were actions, they were called, in the, you know, Photoshop lingo, where people would come up with ways to kind of extract that and then subtract it out, things like that. So there are ways to get rid of it, but it's not worth the effort. It's way easier to just dither in the beginning, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. Stuff like that's really a pain, like pattern noise stuff. And even the low noise sensors have it, because, you know, there's different types of you know, patterns that are in them, and a lot of it is just due to the way the columns are read out and things like that when they're, you know, reading the data off the sensor to digitize it.
I was wondering if anybody has some insight into DSLR versus a dedicated astro camera. I'm using a Sony. Actually, I have two. I have a crop sensor and a full frame, and I'm getting pretty decent results. Although it's on a refractor, 90 millimeter APO-ED, 540 millimeter focal length, so maybe it's less demanding. But is it really worth all that extra expense for a dedicated camera, which I can't use for anything else, and doesn't do very good pictures of grandchildren?
Sony makes some pretty amazing chips, and a lot of the dedicated cameras you're going to buy have the Sony IMX chip in them as their imaging chip. The advantage of having a dedicated camera is, first and foremost, probably that the infrared cut filter is already removed. In other words, it's moved lower. You know, I can't say anything bad about the Sony chip because my dedicated camera has the Sony chip. The thing was, when you buy a dedicated camera, it's just a cylinder with a chip inside. You need a PC to work it. Whereas if you have a camera, you could put an intervalometer on it. You could be a little more portable with less gear. Now, granted, that takes a little more patience, but anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm sure everybody else has something to add.
Yeah,
I think the main thing, you asked, is it worth, you know, is it worth it in terms of all that overhead and that hassle for having a dedicated camera? And I think the biggest single factor from my perspective, I was like a real diehard DSLR person. When I would, you know, go even to remote sites, you know, a lot of people had, in fact, most people had dedicated cameras, and they would say, you know, why are you still using that? And I would defend it because I got decent results. And when I, about 2.5 years ago, switched over to a dedicated camera, I guess about 2 years. 2 years ago, switched over to a dedicated camera. For me personally, it was a game changer because of the cooling. The fact that camera was cooled, the signal noise ratio got so good so fast. In addition to what Lou said, I didn't have a camera that was converted, so I didn't have the IR block filter taken out. So that's also another big factor in terms of the color spectrum, getting that H alpha data and things like that I couldn't get before. I actually had an old Canon Rebel 300D that must have had a really crappy IR block filter because
Uh,
with that camera, I got really decent reds, and that kind of spoiled me because I used that camera for years, even when the newer cameras came out that I owned for, going on vacation and stuff like that, that I did use for astrophotography. But it wasn't as good in the red spectrum as my old DSLR, from the early Canon Rebel days. And once I switched to, so that kind of fooled me into sticking with it for a long, long time. Once I switched over, I would never go back other than taking wide field stuff like on a tracker, things like that, which I still do with my unmodified DSLR.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, thanks for that input. I will look into it again. I mean, there is one other aspect you get from a regular commercial camera. There's a lot of image processing is built in, and it depends on how you take the images. But I've gotten decent results. Actually, I mean, I have the ASI Air. Can either use that to acquire images, or I've also tried just using the camera. So that recent Sony Alpha 7 IV has actually some features built in for basically it's an intervalometer that's built in. And so, but I mean, it doesn't do the live stacking, but you can acquire a large number of images. And I find that I mean the built-in software in the camera does a decent job. Just I mean avoids some of the hassle of the stretching and yeah, the photoshopping later on.
Yeah, I think you could go with a DSLR for a long time. I mean, I started with film and then moved to a DSLR. Actually, the intermediate step, I did afocal just with a little point and shoot camera. Then I moved to a DSLR, and I've probably used a DSLR for 15 years.
Mm.
From when your early, like I said, the early Rebel, that was Canon's that early real successful low cost DSLR camera until even up to my 70D. I used my 70D, which is probably about 5 years old now.
Yeah.
I
But you
go
mentioned
quite a long time and have very successful results. And the cooled cameras are, like Lou said, you need something to run it, right? It doesn't run itself, so you need some kind of computer with a USB cable. Now you have another cable rather than just a self timer or an intervalometer. So yeah.
But you mentioned signal to noise. So with a cooled camera, can you put a number on that? I mean, what kind of difference in signal to noise does it translate like into what, a factor 2 in time savings?
I'd have to look at that. That's a good question. And from a quantitative standpoint, but I could easily see it being just anecdotally, maybe a factor of 4 or factor of 6 or 8 better. Even like, because like the other problem is like now it's summer, right? So when I was out with my DSLR, it's whatever the ambient is plus some because it has electricity in it, and it has electronics in it that are heating. So there's self-heating. So you have whatever ambient there is. So if it's 75 degrees that night or 80 degrees or 80 degrees that night, now the camera internal might be 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a good point.
A cooled camera, the typical ones, even these consumer grades like we're talking about, made by ZWO and various manufacturers, they can routinely cool 30 to 35 degrees Celsius below ambient.
Mm.
And in electronics, thermal noise is a non-linear function, right?
Yeah,
So
I
the
agree,
higher- yeah,
because at least with the square, I think,
Yeah.
of absolute temperature.
right. So you have a significant benefit by being able to cool. Like even in the summer, on bad summer nights, if I'm out imaging with these modern cameras, I can't quite cool like the -20 degrees C, but I could typically get to -10 or -15 degrees C at the sensor, even though it's 80 degrees outside.
Yeah, okay.
So if I might ask, this sort of sounds like a question of increment, right? I mean, it kind of depends on where you start and where you want to go. So if it's just a matter of changing out a DSLR with a an astro camera on the back of an optical tube, that's one thing. If you've got all the other accessories that go with it, but you know, when you make that jump, you're making kind of a quantum jump in terms of all the other things that go around having a better camera. You know, with the dithering that we just talked about, tracking, whatever else it is that you might have. I mean, does that make sense to other people? You know, it's kind of depends on where you are now and where you want to be.
Sure, and I mean it is like jumping into the deep end of the pool, because once
Yeah.
you do one thing, there's other stuff that has to come along with it.
The camera's the cheap
So
part.
yeah, so it's Heiner, your original question was, is it worth it? And that's really hard to answer in terms of that, because it depends on kind of what you're willing to tolerate sometimes, because there is a learning curve, and then there's, how do you process the data? Because you're probably going to start taking multiple images and then try to stack them, things like that. So part of it depends on what it is you're going after, like you said, Jeff. And then the other part of it is how much are you willing to kind of put up with sometimes, because things do go wrong, and you have to troubleshoot at times like that. My personal opinion is for me it was worth it,
Yeah,
because I also started out having a lot of background knowledge. So it wasn't like I was trying to learn everything at once. I was incrementally adding on stuff, because when I went with my DSLR, I was still guiding. I was already guiding. I was already dithering. I used my laptop, and I used free software to do that. And fortunately, there is a lot of free software to do that.
yeah. So
So
actually, a related question is, I mean, there's okay, the standard procedure is you need to do darks and flats and bias and all of this. And okay, so for the dark, I think it's only effective if you actually spend an equal amount of time recording in the dark, so the noise matches, isn't it?
correct.
And
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Your dark should be at the same exposure and same temperature as your
that's a
lights.
a lot of extra. Yeah, like I mean, I have it. I can't go out there and be out there all night. So
No, you don't do
gotta
the
get
No,
dark.
this
no,
done.
the darks you can do at home. I mean, there have been times I've stuck my DSLR in the refrigerator because I was imaging in a cool night, and it's supposed to be at the same temperature.
Yeah, that's
So
the problem.
my refrigerator is about 40 degrees, and I think it was like 45 that night when I was out in the backyard. So I came in and I put the DSLR in the refrigerator, and I hooked up the intervalometer and just kind of let it run for an hour.
But how big a difference does it make? I mean, I've done it both ways, and I don't see actually such a huge
Well,
difference.
if you don't add enough darks, you're going to make more noise. But some people, it depend. I mean, these newer cameras are really quiet now. Some people, there's a couple schools of thought. You should have as many darks as many as lights. But if you actually read further, um, ideally you'll need 5 times as many darks as you would lights to improve the picture by a factor of 2. I want to go back to your other question. There's a very good explanation on the internet, John Rista's website, whether it's worth it or not. Here, I'm going to put a link to it. Whether it's worth it or not to use to stack or to use, for noise reduction and single to noise ratio. So just so you know, it's there. But some people, rather than using darks, especially with some of the newer cameras, most of the signal, the noise, comes from the bias frame. Now, as the temperature gets hotter, the dark becomes a bigger factor. But the bias signal, there is, when you turn on the electronics, it has like a fingerprint. Every piece of electronic puts out a certain amount of noise when you turn it on. And I think I found personally that I've gotten better results. Now everybody, your mileage may vary here, and it also depends on the time of year. But I don't even use darks anymore. I just subtract the bias, and I'd factor up the bias to subtract that from the flat, because the fraction of noise is much greater from the bias, especially with these newer cameras. Now, the issue with doing that is you might have hot pixels or cold pixels, but that's also easily removed in the software because the darks would technically take care of those.
And
But-
how do you record the bias? You turn the gain all the way down?
No, you leave everything the same. What you do is you cover your camera. You can do this inside too, and put your speed at the fastest shutter speed possible.
Oh, okay, the shutter, yeah.
And then I would take 150 bias frames, just because that would. I mean, it's really easy to take. It'll take you 5 minutes, and then it'll give you this, very, very smooth and a good average. And then you would make a master bias, and then use that once. I mean, make it once, and then you'd use it over and over again.
Okay.
I
mean, a modern chip, isn't it supposed to actually be very much a constant number across the sensor?
Well, there's some variation. I mean, the modern chips are much quieter than what they used to be, but there's certainly a little bit of variation, and that's why you want to take, you want to stack as many frames as possible. Is it's like a fingerprint. Every camera, a specific pattern. Like my DSLR camera, in the bias was the banding. Like Gary was mentioning before.
Yeah.
Banding was, that wouldn't get rid of that, but there was a script in some of the software that could easily, remove that as well. It did a good job removing that. But yeah, you'll see if when you look at you take a bias and you'll stretch it, and then you look at it carefully, and you'll see, and you can compare that with the difference.
Yeah.
Dark frame.
My camera just has a little bit of issue at the edge, but other than that, it's very flat.
Yeah, I mean, you can even crop that, but do you have a light coming at the edge of the? Oh wait, you have a Sony, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you know which chip is in your camera?
So I used to have two. One is the Alpha 6500 crop sensor. I don't remember the type.
I don't know what anybody knows. It's IMX something.
Yeah. And the other, the newer one is the Alpha 74 that has, I think that's the latest Sony chip.
Very, very good camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous. The only problem is that there's a filter in front of that
Yeah.
cut out a lot of the most important or the most predominant light in the sky, the H alpha signal. And, unless you remove that, personally, I would get a dedicated astro camera.
Yeah. Okay,
That's
that's
just me.
been super helpful.
There's, I'm sure Joe's got a lot to say about darks too. He's been quiet over there.
We're gonna start fighting.
I think everything that Lou and Gary said is I agree with totally. I mean, they presented it beautifully. I just want to make the point that I wouldn't discount your camera totally. If I want inspiration on what I'm using, usually I'll type in, like, I use a Canon 6D, and if I'm down in the dumps, I'll just put on the browser Canon 6D dash Astrobin, and Astrobin is a sharing site for different cameras. And I think Gary's a member, and there may be some other members here. I'm not myself, but if you type in your information dash Astrobin, it will give you a list of images that are taken with your equipment. And although I have a Canon 6D, which is a DSLR that's modified, and some dedicated astro cameras, you can get great results with each. With the DSLRs, you have to be much more careful with calibration frames, including the darts. With using a dedicated camera, because the noise is so low, the inherent, dark current in there is so low. I mean, there's a school of thought that you don't really even need to take the darks, but with the dedicated DSLRs, you have to be really, really careful. And although the darks can be a pain in the neck, and there's some people say, you have to cut your image in half and take the darks like in the middle of the session, not at the beginning of the session or the end of the session. I don't think you need to really do that. I mean, I've gone up to, really cold places in the middle of the winter, and I've shot, and then I've gotten too cold. So I took the lights and I might have exposed the bias frames and the flats, and I'll leave the windows open in the car and just drive home with the camera in the back seat, taking the darks, so, I mean, I'm out of work for 2 weeks,
I never thought of
like it's not terrible, and there have been some beautiful, beautiful images with the DSLR. You just have to be a little more careful with it, It's like running a steam locomotive versus, a diesel. A steam locomotive, you've got to do a little more work to, so the thing doesn't blow up on you. But I think you can do it with each, and I listen to these guys who are DSLR enthusiasts, and they say, you get really, really close to the performance of a dedicated camera if you're really careful.
Yeah,
So,
that's good to know.
so
For sure.
I wouldn't discount it totally, or get down in the dumps over just having a DSLR. I mean, there's a ton you can do with it. It's the performance is better in the winter than it is in the summer. Like, sometimes I look at the results I would get, on a hot summer night, and it would be really not so great with all the banding and everything like that. In the winter, it's not so bad because the temperature's cooler and you get less noise. But I think you can still get a good result. I would Google your stuff into Astrobin and just get a list of images and just look at them if you want, a little bit of inspiration,
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, so that's all.
Thanks.
My 2 cents.
Joe, I would have never thought to drive with the windows open. Big heart.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
put it in the refrigerator or the freezer, or when my wife would do laundry, the warm towels, she would like yell at me, "Why is the camera in the laundry bin?"
This is the first time I've admitted that. By the way.
Well, it helps you stay awake after a long session too, right?
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Well, if you're driving home from Cherry Springs,
You're doing it anyway.
Yeah, driving home from
Right.
Frank's anyway, taking the
Do
flats in the
whatever
back
you can to
seat.
keep your eyes open.
Yeah, right.
And it's not worth getting divorced over astrophotography with all the
yeah, this hobby can be very addicting. You got to be careful because you can also spend a lot of money. I mean, my next thing I buy, my wife says I'm living inside of it.
You know,
Right.
guys, I think that for me, the addictive part is just that idea of just being out under that night sky and, just looking and seeing and experiencing the cool air and the sounds that you hear at night, especially when you're out in the middle of the woods or something. To me, that's the thing that make 3 days up in the mountains, taking pictures at night of beautiful open skies, and I came back all charged up because of that experience. Not so much, I didn't come back thinking, oh, I want to spend hours shooting or processing images. I just really enjoyed being out there. And I was there with somebody, a sister who lived up there all her life, and she never really knew she was looking at the Milky Way out her backyard. And so, I mean, that's kind of what made that addictive for me. It's like, I want more of that, but I also like to really squeeze the most I can out of technology when I'm out in the middle of nowhere. So I think the addictions vary from person to person.
Jeff, I have to agree with you because you don't know how much data I have that hasn't been processed because
Yeah. Yeah.
out there, being out under the stars is just amazing.
Yeah. Especially if you have like a meteor shower going or you have clouds, whatever. Just everything about it.
No mosquitoes though. I don't like the
I
mosquitoes.
pass on the mosquitoes. Yeah. I heard a guy talk about a friend of his one time who shot out at night and somewhere in the middle of nowhere, obviously, naked. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Okay.
And I'm like, what? It's not so much the naked part, but I mean, most of us would come home from that experience and we would just be peppered with mosquito bites. I don't know how you could even do that. It was strange.
I'm gonna comment, but we're on YouTube now, so I'm gonna keep my
Oh, I'm like, no, we're not doing that. No.
So
Yeah, well, as far as addiction goes, I was determined that I was not going to get into deep sky imaging, aside from the very beginner stuff I did years ago. But I was out over Green Lane, and John showed me how to do live stacking in SharpCap. I was there just for a very specific purpose, and so I trained my telescope on the Orion Nebula and stacked it. And I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. Well, next thing you know, I got an ASI 533, an ASI Air, and then I found out I needed a better mount, so I've got a better mount and tripod now. And so I'm learning Sterile to process the images. This was something I was determined to avoid, but I fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, how'd that work
Thanks,
for
John.
And the dominoes continue to fall.
It's
Yeah.
a
Now I'm
slippery slope.
thinking about an electric focuser. Jeez, yeah. Does it ever end?
Go for it. Go for it.
Tom says that money's not going to spend itself.
Yeah, we'll gladly
Right,
enable
Tom?
you.
No, but I have somebody in the house here that would help me spend it quite well.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to have anything to do with it. It's like a hands-free operation.
Even Tom's been imaging up to an hour sometimes, I've heard.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
I've got an hour's worth of light frames of NGC 73331 and Stefan Quintet all on the same frame. And I've last couple of weeks I don't have a chance to process them. They're sitting there waiting for me, so I'm really curious to see what I got.
Yeah.
They're all 2-minute exposures, guided.
So what do you guys do about location? I mean, I find that one of the more challenging aspects. I mean, I started in the backyard here in the suburbs, but then we have a house up in the Poconos, and that's much better. There's a huge difference. The biggest problem is trees. So
Yeah.
we're on overlooking a lake, and we're facing north. So I happen to have lots of images of the northern sky and almost nothing of the southern sky. I find it really challenging to find spots where, well, obviously good astral conditions, low light, but also where I don't feel like there's going to be some farmer coming out with a shotgun or something.
Well, where
So
do you live?
how do you deal with that?
Where do you live?
So here, Newtown Square, and up there we're in our Paupack area.
Well, we have a couple of observing sites. There's the Hickory Run, which is really, it's the darker of the sites that we have now. We have,
Hickory Run State Park. Uh-huh.
yeah, and then we have
Mhm.
Green Lane, which I'm not sure how far that is compared to Hickory Run from where you are. And then, of course, there's Cherry Springs, which is 4.5 hours away, but it is really dark. The Milky Way lights up. It's like a fluorescent light in the sky.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But with these sites like the state parks, I mean, we gotta wait for an event, isn't it? I mean, if we go in between,
No, somebody went. I don't know. I haven't been to Hickory Run yet. Has anybody been there?
Yeah, I went there a couple weeks ago. That's where I got some of the images I haven't processed yet. But we went to Hickory Run, and one other guy was there, Joe, I forget his last name, but great horizons and relatively dark. Yeah.
I was there one night with Jeremy and Len Jensen, and I think it was the night where we met the park ranger in person for the first time, or Jeremy did, and we had an observing session with her, and she is a very experienced astronomer and imager. She's quite knowledgeable. I don't think we need to make special arrangements to go up there, although Jeremy could confirm that. But it's a pretty good spot. It's a very big field that as I think Wayne said, it gives good horizons, and it's a reasonable drive compared to
yeah.
other things. And yeah, so also something Len and I talked about, maybe for the next visit up there, I might bring a tent and sleeping pad and sleeping bag and set those up in a campground and do my observing, and then go crash for a few hours before I drive home, and pay the $25 or whatever it is to, the for a campsite in the park. But for me, where I live in Upper Darby, it's a little bit of a drive, and at the end of a session, it's kind of it's hard. So I'm like Joe with the windows open only. I'm not
Yeah.
taking any dark frames. I'm trying to take cold frames of me. But it's a pretty good spot. Yeah.
Okay.
And
And
we do
how
have
about Green Lane? I mean, that's closer for here, the Philly suburbs, but it doesn't sound like it's far enough from all the
Green Lane.
lights, isn't it?
It's pretty dark. It's a Bortle 5. Hickory Run is probably Bortle 4.
Okay.
You're not talking about the Green Lane exit off the Schuylkill Expressway.
No, I haven't been up there, but I saw you have the star parties up there.
Right, it's up past Schwenksville.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I live across the street. That's why I bought the house here,
Uh-huh.
because it's
And
it's the darkest corner of Montgomery.
okay. And can we go on our own any night?
Yep.
We have, the club has a permit for Green Lane, and the park has requested that they be given advance notice if anyone is going to go up there. I talked to Jeremy at the monthly meeting, at the most recent monthly meeting, and he said the best way to do it is to just send him an email if you're interested.
You
in
mean
going
Hickory
up
Run, Barry?
and he'll contact the park. He, for now at least, wants to be sort of the point person so that they're not getting like random emails from various people that they don't know, who they are. So,
You're talking Hickory Run.
You
right?
mean Hickory Run, not
Yeah.
Green
oh,
Lane?
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Hickory Run. I'm sorry.
No.
No. Green Lane, you can just go. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
And French Creek State Park also, right?
Yes. But
Yeah.
French Creek is the, you're talking about the rifle range or you're talking about the state park?
Well,
Rifle range.
the
we have a
park, I've been
permit
at the
for.
park. Right, but yeah, the park, I've been at the park and it's the area that I thought that was designated was by the playground near the lake.
yeah, it's not really the best place there. There's like a light.
Yeah. You've got
Yeah,
your
the
actually
horizons
right.
the horizons
The
aren't
light
great.
pollution
You got
cloud.
trees.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the light cloud from the city is still pretty strong up there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And then the firing range, I'm really scared to go there because you drive right up,
too.
right on to the range. You just need a whack job to come up there and start firing his gun, and then you're done.
Yeah. Some good old boy. Yeah.
Yeah, don't wear antlers.
Yeah. We used to go there many times.
Yeah.
French Creek Game Lands, rifle range, but we decided it's not worth the risk. I don't want a bullet in my telescope.
You know,
Telescope?
Not to mention the park rangers, the new one
Yeah.
was a real pain in the butt. You'd
Yeah,
come in,
it's not a very good spot from a dark perspective. There are better places.
yeah,
like,
we had
It has trees. It doesn't have good horizons. There's a light dome, and you have to wait till the shooters are done near dusk. So, unless you live, I don't know, unless there's some reason you want to go there, it's the lesser of all the options we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think Green Lane's better. I like that better now.
yeah, it's a little bit darker than Green Lane, but the horizons are not as good. It's just not. Yeah, we used to go there all the time before we had anywhere else to go. But yeah, it's not the best place.
Where was the ranger giving you a hard
Oh,
time?
yeah, you know what? We were there at the Elverson at the firing range, and he shines this light. It was as bright as Chernobyl, like right in your face.
Oh.
You know?
It's like, thanks, man. You just blinded us for an hour.
Oh, he was yelling at us, and we were showing him the permit. He didn't want to see the permit. This guy was just, so it takes 40 minutes for your eyes to get adapted, and you lose it in a split second.
Right.
He
Did you settle it with him, or did he throw you out, or what?
didn't throw us out, but no, you had to wait another 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing photography then. I was just looking visually through my dog.
Yeah, even so. Yeah. That was recent?
No, that's when I went. That was 7 years ago when I went on my quest.
Oh, okay. Because I think it was last summer or even fall, I was out there, but I was on the lake's edge. The rangers came up. I couldn't see him. All I could see was headlights, but I assume he was checking me out because he'd stand there with his headlights shining on me, and I'm trying to hide my eyes. But he didn't say anything. He just kept right on going.
Yeah, that's the nicer of the two places, I think. But I think there is a lamp there that's lit.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, at the water's edge, I think it's right by the vending machine. There's light.
Yeah. I'd rather go there than the firing range if I had to choose.
Oh, absolutely.
But then if you're too close to the water, then there's fog and, you need to do abatement equipment. I mean, no matter what, if you live in southeastern Pennsylvania, you're doing astrophotography, you're going to need to do abatement.
And a towel.
And to tell, yeah, at least one.
Towel?
A towel.
At
What's
least.
What's the towel for?
For when the dew abatement equipment doesn't abate well enough.
Oh, at that point, I think it's all over.
I even have a little hair dryer that I hook up to my 12-volt battery. It doesn't put
I've
out
seen that.
it doesn't put out any heat. But
First I saw somebody doing that was on Cedar Key Island out in off the coast of Florida. And it was so dark there, I literally standing next to the guy and couldn't see him.
you know, we forgot to mention New Jersey has a couple of
Belpain? Is that what it Belpain?
Yeah, the Pine Barrens. And then if you want to go down to Assateague, I know that's a hike, but the Belpain State Forest is where the South Jersey Club goes, or is it the Willingboro Club?
The South Jersey, the Astronomical Society, so the SJ Club, yeah, they have Bellaplane and they have a dedicated space, and that they give access to members. I think it's very reasonable. I think it's $20 a year or maybe $22 a year to join them. I've toyed with doing that to go down there. I know there are some DVAA members like that do that.
Dan McCauley.
Mark Ferrari.
Dan McCauley, Mark Ferrari was down there. Yeah, they're the two I know of. And they speak highly of it. It's decent skies.
Well, what about just going down the shore? I guess you're kind of limited to shooting easterly, though.
Yeah, there's a lot of light glow. I've tried doing stuff. I wind up taking pictures of the moon or something because, which is a good thing, but
A lot of street lights.
yeah, there's street lights. There's a lot of, hotel lights and store lights and all that. So there winds up being a lot of sky glow. Like Assateague, like Lou mentioned, that's about, from my house, I live near actually the center of Montgomery. I'm in Center Point in Montgomery County. So like Montgomery County is a rectangle. If you make an X through it, my house is about a quarter mile from the marker. And it's 3 hours and about 3 to 3 hours and 10 minutes or so to get to Assateague. And the benefit of that is that there's like nothing down there, especially to the south and the east. So you have the ocean to the east and nothing to the south because the island kind of comes out and then backs in, and where the national campground is, where the national seashore is, it's kind of like arced. So when you're up in the middle of that, where the seashore is, you're looking basically south over the southern part of the ocean there. So you get really good shots of like Sagittarius and Scorpius, things like that. And it's quite dark, but it is 3 hours away. The benefit there is you can camp there. So you can rent a campground all year round at the national seashore. The state park, which is adjacent to it, closes in October, I think it is. But the national seashore is open all year round. It's crazy. It's kind of, I've gone there during like the summer, and besides the night being too short, the mosquitoes are like vampires. Like they will eat you alive. So now I only go in like the fall. And I like 2 years ago, my wife Tracy and I went down in October to hang out there for about 3 days. We did some astro imaging. She did some stuff with her job, and then last year we went in November. And I know John, you and Dan McCauley went in December. I would happen to have another commitment, so I couldn't go down there then. But those are really, really nice times a year to go down there for astrophotography because it gets dark early and there's nobody there. So it's dark.
It was great. I dropped pins to all these exact locations on Google Map in the chat, including the Bayside campsite Lupe. That's the good spot.
Yeah. Or even B. I usually go to B because the B is the no generator.
Oh yeah, there was a generator running.
So I usually go to B, which is right next to it.
Okay, I see it.
B and C.
Nice.
But in the winter, it doesn't quite matter. There's not, or in the fall, it doesn't quite matter. There aren't that many people down there.
Yeah. Good call.
But I'm intending to go down there again, this fall. It's 3-hour drive and it's quite dark.
Yeah, I stayed 2 nights, I think, when I went down there.
Hey guys, I'm getting tired. I think I'm gonna leave you all.
Okay,
Good seeing
Yeah.
everybody.
good seeing you, Lou.
Take care, Lou.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
Take care, Lou.
Bye.
Thanks for your help, bud.
Good night.
my pleasure. Hey,
Thanks,
I
Lou.
sent
Take
a
care,
copy
Lou.
of this email for you there, Jeff.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I think I have it anyway because he responded to me directly.
Thanks a lot for all the information. Great.
Hey, Brett, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
That
Good. I have
image,
one for you too.
oh, good. That image that you had taken of M8 that you had sent me. When we, after the last time, there was, I had pulled that into PixInsight. Remember I mentioned to you that I was going to try bringing it into PixInsight to see what, could be eked out of it. And
Yes.
I noticed sort of, a background gradient. So I ran some commonly
Yes.
used PixInsight gradient removal tools. Like one is this it's called automatic background extraction. One is called dynamic background extraction. The other one's just called gradient correction. And using all three of those techniques, I wound up having a weird gradient pattern, even after I tried to fix it, that I've never seen before.
Like and Gary, it was like a colored pattern, right?
Yeah, and I have that. I while we were talking, I opened up PixInsight and I dropped each of those images into PixInsight. So, would you mind if I shared my screen and just kind of threw it out to the group to see if anyone had any insight?
No,
I
I was experiencing the same thing. I was using, again, I know I'm just at the very start with PixInsight. And I was trying some of those same tools and was getting the same kind of thing that you mentioned. And also with the Andromeda image, I think I also had sent not as bad, but I noticed there was all that noise and stuff in the background that I don't know what was causing that.
Do you mind if I share
yeah,
my
please
screen
do.
with your images? And guys, are you interested?
No, not at all.
Look at this, the group.
Yeah.
No
I
problem.
think you should have sharing now.
This is guys, keep in mind, this is a guy that's just been doing this for about a month when this was taken.
No, it's great.
No, the images, I think the images are good. It's just that I'm not sure how to, like, gradient corrections. After cropping, gradient corrections, the next thing you need to do really before you start processing the image. And so let me go here. So share screen. I'm going to share.
We're expert.
I'm going to share this so I can pull that up. Let's get that out of the way. And where am I here? Okay, so can you see a blank PixInsight screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So this is
Yes.
hold on. So this
That's
is
what I got.
this is the first attempt. So this is the image. This is Brett's stacked image. So this has a small number of darks, bias, and flats. I forget the actual numbers, Brett. You had sent them, and I did get that. It was something like 10, 20, and 20, or something like that, or 10, 10, 10, and 20.
Sounds about right. Yep.
So this is the image he sent me.
Yeah.
It was stacked, and you could see it's a good image. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there. So I ran it through at first. I ran it through automatic background extraction. And this was the result after doing a subtraction. And you can see these bands here. These bands.
Yep.
I saved the actual background that was that the automatic background extraction went,
Subtracted?
calculated,
Hmm.
and then used that and that was subtracted out. So you can see how the patterns match, right? You can see how this matches that
Yeah.
with these bands. And I thought, well, sometimes automatic background extraction doesn't work because especially with a image with a lot of nebulosity, things like that. So what I did then was use dynamic background extraction. And again, we're starting with this image. So to me, it made it worse. When I look at this, it made it worse.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, let me take this image and I'm going to do dynamic background extraction. And with that, you do you basically place these little squares and you move it away from the nebulosity. So you're really trying to capture the background. And I've had very good success with dynamic background extraction when when I have difficulty with other methods. This is the pattern it got for the background removal, and this is the result. You can still see there's these bands in it.
Yeah.
Now, it's possible that once you stretch this and once you manipulate it, you could suppress that background, but you're going to lose dynamic range by doing that. So ideally, you would have a fairly flat image here. I'll make it a little bigger. You would have a little flat image here, and then you would start to color calibrate it and do other techniques. So then I thought, well, PixInsight came out with a new tool, which basically just does a gradient correction. And it's supposed to be sort of a one-stop shopping kind of gradient correction. Well, sure enough, the same exact pattern came out.
Huh.
And I've never seen this before in any data that I've taken and I've processed. So I'm wondering if anyone has any thoughts as to what might be behind this and how to deal with it.
Yeah. I've seen something kind of like this. I use Graxpert to do a similar background extraction, and it has a concept of a smoothness, and you can scale it from 0 to 1. And if it's not smooth enough, you start seeing those bands. But if you do the smoothing, it'll kind of it won't be as sharp. It won't remove the background quite as accurately, but it's less likely to have banding. I don't know if there's any sort of smoothness slider on any of those tools.
No, well,
Yeah.
let me say the gradient correction does. So there is a smoothness slider, and I think I did try playing with that, but maybe not enough because that was the last one I kind of did. And I said, well, it's still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I think I did try grass.
Time to understand where we are and what it will take to win.
Someone's streaming.
What's that?
Someone was streaming, it looks like. Sounds like. So, okay, the smoothness. The only other thing off the top of my head, it almost looks like JPEG artifacts. But if the file came in as a FITS or it's a raw file in the beginning, right?
It was a FIT file. So I'm not.
Yeah, this.
I guess
These were
better. This was this the output of the like ASI Studio or something like that?
The I sent you both the raw fits. Well, the fits file, yeah, I stacked it in the ASI app, the deep stacker or whatever it is that comes. That's the free app, and I think that's the first image you were showing there, and then I think you took it from that point. So that was out of the ASI Air from a 2600 MC Duo.
But as a raw file, because if you started with a JPEG,
it was a raw file. It was
okay.
Yeah, this was not a J. He sent me both the JPEG and the FIT. This is from the FIT file.
Perfect. Okay, I don't know then. Yeah.
But I could try the smoothing on this gradient correction. I think I did try Graspert too, but I didn't play with the smoothing, and that gave the same result. I don't usually use the gradient correction. I usually use the dynamic background extraction,
Mm-hmm.
which is this tool here.
The little
This is the
squares.
tool that I tend to use. And what I'll typically do is I'll use I've had seen this YouTube video about how to set this up so that background stars don't have as much of an effect. So I'll typically generate this and then I'll kind of move this stuff away from the nebulosity. These I would just delete. I would just get rid of these. So then it's taking sample points and you know, trying to look at the background
Yeah.
of those sample bars. So like let me just show you, I'll just generate it. So then I have it set to subtraction. So if I do the calculation
Oh.
and then smooth and then stretch that, you can see them, they pop right back
Yeah.
up. And then this would be the extraction.
Huh. That did have a smoothness factor in there before you closed it. The
Yeah, the background. So that would be something to try. These are settings that I have kind of settled on for my photography, and
yeah.
they were the starting point was this video that talked about actually bringing these up considerably. So I can play with that to see if it makes a difference. I mean, we can try it right now. So let's bring this up to 0.5 or something.
But
No, it
just
almost looks like posterization, you know, like maybe it almost looks like maybe it was shot like in 8-bit and now you're
yeah.
processing in 16-bit, you know, like I don't,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the effect I get, you know, like
Yeah.
I've had like 32-bit images that I mistakenly put into Photoshop, which only works with 16-bit. And that's when I see that kind of banding, you know, it's,
That's a really good point, Joe. I didn't even
That
think of
is,
that.
yeah,
Maybe it was quantized.
Look at the header of the FITS file. I bet it'll have it.
would it show it?
It might tell you what it was captured with.
It almost looks like a JPEG to me, you
Exactly.
know, originally.
And
But I don't know. What do I know?
I agree with you completely.
No, I think that's a really good point. I don't know. Do you know, Brett, when you process that, if there was any like lower bit resolution quantization and then
Yeah,
it was
would have
saved?
been,
I would think the ASI error would
I
do
wouldn't
it.
have, I didn't change anything. I wouldn't have implicitly done, I wouldn't have changed anything in the air that I know of.
Yeah, if you have that FITS, open it up. It'll say.
Gradations
Let
are
me
so
just-
smooth. I mean, that's what it reminds me of, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of one bonehead night I had up at Frank's where I was shooting a JPEG all night, you know, and didn't know why I couldn't process the stuff, you know. So speaking from experience.
Uh-oh.
That's Mike.
Somebody should mute.
Hey, Mike,
Hmm.
you might want to mute your mic there. There you go.
Somebody has a hot mic.
Yeah, he got it.
Actually, here's the header.
Yeah.
See that? Can you see this?
Yeah, yeah. We keep going down. Bit pics 16.
Yeah, but it doesn't say where it came, what it came from. Because if it was quantized to a lower bit count initially, and then save that out later on, that could cause that
Oh.
posterization. But I doubt it would do that. I mean, he's using the 2600.
If it's stacked,
And that's a 16-bit A to D in that
it's
camera.
16-bit undebayered, but if it's stacked and already debayered, it should be 32 bits. because each RGB channel gets its own
Right.
our God.
That is odd. So maybe it's an artifact of the ASI Air doing the stacking.
I wonder.
For
Saving
the,
that file.
was it stacked in the ASI Air?
I think
No, it
right,
was
Brett?
the no, yeah, the fits files, the reference files and the lights were all copied onto my PC, and then I used the Fits Studio Deep Stacker app with all the defaults. I just dragged the files in and let it run.
Deep Sky Stacker?
So you used ASI
Deep Sky Stacker,
Studio?
right? Yes. ASI Studio, yes.
So you used the ASI Airs or the ZWO's ASI Studio to do stacking.
Correct.
Wait.
Everything was managed by the Air. I copied the files from the Air. I had them on a thumb drive. I had them going directly to the thumb drive on the Air. Then took the thumb drive, copied those to the PC, fired up ASI Studio on the PC, and ran ASI Deep Stacker. Brought in the files, and then just let it run. I didn't change any. I don't really know there's much that you can change in that. You just kind of choose the files you want to stack and let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a Studio Deep Stack?
Yeah. ASI.
ASI Deep Stack. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry, John. It was ASI Deep Stack is the. I'm
There
looking
we
at it now.
go.
The
Okay.
ASI Studio.
I'm confusing you. I'm
ASI
throwing out
Deep
too many
Stack.
words. Sorry. As a Deep Stack. There we go.
Yeah, not Deep Sky Stacker. So ASI Studio has a way to do stacking in there.
Got it.
But your initial image before attempting the gradient correction doesn't have this banding, so I don't think it has anything to do with the stacking, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you can see a real strong gradient.
Yeah, just a gradient, but it's a smooth gradient. It doesn't have this banding.
Correct. And
So I
that's
think that's an artifact of the gradient, the background correction.
correct. Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's just the question is why. I've never seen it. I've never seen these tools fail. So what in this data?
In this
What in
particular,
this data is fooling those tools?
What if you stretch this? Will we start seeing that banding if you stretch it?
I mean, this is auto stretched now.
Yeah, if we just like push it real high, I'm curious if it'll like come out.
Well, we can. So let's open them up and see. It's going to be a little wacky, but
Yeah, sometimes I just go way hard to see what's underneath, but I don't see them.
I mean, I can do it just let me do it this way. This is a better way. This is a more controlled way to do it. I'm just going to auto stretch that again, turn it off, and
Yeah,
then just bring up the
there you go.
histogram. So I'm gonna just stretch the heck out of this,
Yeah.
and let's not clip it just yet. And we can get our red channel. We can get our red channel better aligned. Let's do that. Let's reset it. And let's go RGB and let's get our, I'm gonna reset it. Hold on.
Yeah.
So there's not really,
Yeah.
I mean, you can see the gradient,
Yeah, but it's smooth, like you said.
but it's smooth. And this is what is totally confusing me.
Huh.
Why that harshness is coming out. That's a really good observation, Joe, because it does look like a posterization effect with, you know, when you reduce the bit count.
Yeah.
That's fairly radical stretching at this point. So, but it's still smooth.
If you mouse over that histogram, does it tell you the pixel values? Because do you see?
Yeah, yeah. You mean
Yeah, there.
yeah,
Because if you look, there's like spacings between them,
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
and that means like less bit depth too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It
That
does. Yeah,
that's a s-
they should be more of a continuum,
Yeah.
not gaps like that. So somewhere along the line, it looks like the data may have been quantized and
Yeah.
saved in 16-bit format, but started out, but somewhere along the line was quantized. What is the gap there? So
When you say quantized, are you referring to compressing the data?
well, just basically losing resolution
Yeah.
in
Well,
the
which is
data.
right, and that's what.
How many shades of gray? Instead of 100 shades of gray, you're only using 10 shades, and you can tell a difference, so to speak.
Yeah, and,
the pic-
and which is exactly what happens when you compress something.
Yep.
Sort of, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a different technique because some compression can be sort of uh less lossy, I guess, in
Yeah,
terms
less lossless
than
compression.
just lopping off data. You know,
Right.
you could take a 16-bit word and just make it a byte, and
Right.
you're just going to lose information.
Right.
the pixel values are rounded off to the next number. So the pixels migrate to one category or the next category or the next category,
Right.
you know.
In compression. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
like
it's roughly whatever this is.
if you could have currency in any amount, you know, but you had to convert it to nickels, dimes, and quarters, you know, and that histogram kind of shows that, you know, the gradations in it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Anyway, so maybe that's the situation because again, I've never
Hey.
seen that
It's a
working with
beautiful shot.
data that I've taken. I know it's great. It has
It's a
tremendous
beautiful
promise.
shot. Yeah.
So
Can you right click on that and like set it to 32-bit or whatever? There's a way to like say take this image and make it 32 bits. I don't know. In Serial you can do that, I know, but
Well, you can
Oh.
save as
okay.
and then set the image property.
Yeah, I wonder if you set it, force it to 32 bits, then run your thing.
So if I save
Oh,
it
boy.
as a TIFF,
See, it says
right now it's 16-bit. Typically it would be like, you know,
yeah, that's what you
32-bit
want there.
floating point.
So save it as that, reopen it, then run it, and you might have the like more bit depth to play with for your gradient. I don't know.
No, I think
Isn't the data already
it's a
lost
great
though?
idea.
Right.
You're right. It's not going to fix everything, but it's not as good as if you had the original data, but it might fix the tool. I'm just
when you say original data, I was thinking this might be a good point to go back and kind of go through the workflow,
yeah.
you know, and look for things with multiple eyes. Like maybe
Could I
even
ask you about the
have
capture software? Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I ask you about the capture software you used?
Okay.
CWO Air, ASI
It's
Air.
an ASI Air.
Um,
Um,
There you go.
Yeah.
So that's I did was what John suggested is to save it as a 32-bit. I took the raw file, the original raw file,
Hmm.
saved it, and then opened that up.
about that.
Yeah. You have more
so
space to play with.
What's the
while you were
gradient
doing that,
file?
I have a file that I brought in of Andromeda from the other night into PixInsight. And I just ran the automatic background extractor with whatever defaults. Again, I don't know my way around this program at all. and then auto stretched it again, and I'm getting a similar pattern of those odd light violet, green
Yeah.
waves and what have you.
Somehow you're in 16-bit
Um,
mode, I think. I don't know how, but
okay,
so you're throwing out half your
so
data.
you think maybe it's something in the air that was set, to the ASI air that was set, or within the camera?
It's probably in your stacking. The
Like the
my
stacking?
hunch is the stacking
Well,
stuff.
but the one I'm looking at here from Andromeda, I did stack this. No, maybe I didn't. I'm sorry. I just don't know the software well enough to comment on it.
No,
So
this is
here's-
great. This is
Here's a good, so I'm doing the same thing. I'm just kind of stretching the heck out of it.
notice the
See, there are
histograms
no
too,
more of these spikes dropping down.
right? No deltas. It's smooth, right?
Right.
So it
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
quantization issue.
You were working in 16-bit mode, so you're
So-
right. It was posterization or whatever.
So your suggestion is that now that I'm a little bit familiar with at least stacking with the weighted batch processing in PixInsight, that I should take these and do the stacking within PixInsight, and then
Correct, because
Try
what
to
PixInsight will do is it'll convert it into a floating point number, and it'll work in its format, which is this XISF format, which is actually, so if I open up one of those,
okay.
and here's the background. Let's just do this. Here's the background. It's still sort of the same,
Right.
but when it's subtracted, it had enough bit depth to not put those
Yep.
bands in.
Huh.
So that's what was breaking the tool, is that it thought it had to stay in 16-bit format. 16-bit integer format, not even floating point, because 16-bit floating point would still give you, a way larger dynamic range. In other words, it can have finer resolution.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
very interesting. What
How
you're
about
seeing,
that?
is that you're seeing the background ghost.
Yeah.
PixInsight
brain.
is sort of a quick preview function that can, if you bring the image over another one, you can just kind of hold the title bar and it'll superimpose both images.
Okay.
So that is
a brain teaser.
Got it.
How about that?
Cool.
So that's what I'll that's what
Yeah.
I'll do for my homework. Well, Gary, I have a similar picture, except that was before I figured out how to center my target. my Veil Nebula was all the way towards the bottom of my image.
The image
So
quality
I
looks
will
really good. It looks really good.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're sort of at a running start, because
Yeah.
you have a great image and a great starting point.
Okay.
Great tracking.
So
Very good.
that was my question to the group, was as I try to come up to speed with processing this, I want to make sure when I'm out there at night, or have some level of comfort that I'm collecting good data. I mean, what I can tell by looking at them is that it's in focus. It's tracking great. It's as best I can tell. So if it passes the eye test with me, can I assume that it's reasonably good data, so that I can revisit, doing some things with it as I get more comfortable with PixInsight, as an example?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's great. If I zoom in on that, everything's round. These, stars are round.
Yeah.
They're, if I remember, they're 1-minute subs, I think you took. And for 1 minute.
Yeah, I played around with 1 to 3.
It looks great. It's not
Okay.
real noisy. So I think you're off to a good start. I was just like scratching my head. I just couldn't understand what was behind this. So thanks for the suggestion, guys, because
Go team.
go team, exactly.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Greatly appreciated.
15 heads are better than
Greatly
one.
appreciated.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
At least
Very
at a
good.
3x5
Thanks so much. So
grid square, right?
All the heads we can fit.
is there
Yeah,
is
exactly.
there a I know that there's
Yeah.
some forums that I follow. Is there one specific to imaging that I could post my results when I go back and go through this again based on what you guys have suggested?
There's the astrophotography forum rather than the main one. Like
Okay.
there's that
Right.
the DVA
Right. Okay. I saw
IO
it.
groups thing. That's just like a general
Right.
public. But there's a separate astrophotography forum. So if you do that, people that have signed up to it, which is probably everyone in this group plus some, I think I don't know, John, if you know how many, but I know it's at least 50 members or maybe 130 members or something. There's like a huge number that
There's over 100, I think, for the astrophotography interest.
yeah, and
Yeah.
they'll all get notified of that, and then you can kind of have a discussion. So on the website, there's
Okay.
a separate astrophotography forum. If you post an image to that, and the nice thing about that is it doesn't compress it like crazy, like the IO groups thing or groups.io.
If you send it via email. If you
It
post,
doesn't.
Yeah.
If you
Did
send it
Tom-
via email, it compresses it. I don't agree with what the one person said.
Yeah. Did you set up a
you
Flickr
had
account,
it
Tom?
backwards?
What's
I
that?
think I talked over you, John. Say it again.
Oh, sorry. I was asking Tom. I thought Tom started using Flickr.
Yeah, I started using Flickr because it's good for like 1,000 images you can put up there. So, yeah, the IO groups was really kind of fuzzing up the image significantly, especially if you're dealing with like the planets or the sun, where you're looking for just fine detail. You get a lot better results if people can look at the full res version.
Yeah. That's why I do it to Astrobin now, because it's the same
Yeah.
kind of reasoning.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then
Yeah.
you can put a link to that and people can zoom in and do what they want with it.
Tom's doing better
And
with
you
the
guys are
C-star.
and you're just
Sorry, go ahead.
you guys these are TIFFs that you're the file format's TIFF or what are you using?
My native images out of the camera are fits. And then when I pull it into
Right,
PixInsight, it uses its own format, which is a more
I'm sorry, guy. I meant when you say post it to like to Flickr for the group to
You publish
view,
it.
is it what file format?
Oh.
I just use like a PNG format, but you could use TIFF, I think.
Yeah, I usually use either I typically use JPEG when I put it on Astrobin, but I put the highest quality in Photoshop it's 12 or in other software it's 100%. And then you don't get those weird artifacts on the bright stars and stuff like that.
I've
I
used
always save in JPEG and then PNG uncompressed. I mean PNG is uncompressed.
Yeah, I use
It's just-
16-bit PNGs. You can use WebP. There's a whole lot of formats these days, but it depends on the file size. Everything's trade-offs. So yeah, either 100% quality JPEG or like a 16-bit PNG file for publishing.
Yeah, this is
All right. Thanks, guys. I've learned a lot, so I'm gonna go watch some convention. Good night.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Good night.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
coming. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you later.
Hey Jeff, Lou texted me. He wanted to know, he was like, you can ask everybody your question because I don't know what happened in that breakout room, but if you had
Well, I don't remember
it
exactly what my question was.
was about
Oh, I mean, I'm using a simple star tracker. And I was just trying to figure out, if I've read about taping scales on the declination bracket and the RA bracket, the whole bit, manually putting scales on there. And then I've read articles about just using plate solving, just take some pictures and figure out where you are and where you want to go from. So I think I sort of figured that out. I guess. I mean, I just need to pick something and learn how to do it. With the hardware part, I was trying to figure out how do I what's the best way to point south? Right, with the simple star tracker. And probably, I think the payload is probably about 7 pounds. The limit on the mount is 11. And so he and I were talking about that. I can show you what I showed him, and he doesn't necessarily think that I can do that much accuracy with what I was showing him, but I'll turn the lights back on. This is just basic stuff, right? So, assuming this is north, I'm lined up on Polaris, and I want to point, let's say from my house, I want to point towards Orion or Pleiades, something like that. What I kind of came to the conclusion was, and I don't have strength in my hands anymore to loosen these things up, was to just kind of roll around and use this way of pointing, right? So this way, because I don't like the idea, for one reason or another, I don't like the idea of using a ball head, tripod ball head.
Your camera's off, Jeff.
Yeah.
Oh, it went off?
Yeah, I was muted and yelling
okay.
at you, so that didn't
It's
help.
like a little QRS thing or whatever.
There you go.
There you go.
Aha, that little button.
That'll help.
Better.
Okay.
Now we
So,
know what you're talking about.
well, that's all right, because this is where I was headed with it anyway. So anyway, this is north. I'm aligned on Polaris, and I want to say shoot Orion or something, and the south sky. And so this is kind of the way it seems to do it, is to just rotate the bracket around. And again, the counterweight's off, but with the counterweight on to move it around, and I sort of just practice, like, is it going to track? And it seems like it will. So Lou thinks, yeah, that'll work, but he's not confident that I can get enough accuracy with say 135 millimeters or more from this mount at all. So
How long are your exposures times?
the best I've been
Um,
able to get is a minute.
You know,
And that
in a
was with
minute,
Hmm?
yeah, in a minute, I think you're probably okay. I mean,
Yeah.
how much flasher are you going to get in 1 minute? You know, if you
Yeah.
were shooting for 5 minutes, I'd be maybe a little more concerned, you know?
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, a minute is really short.
Yeah, relatively speaking, but generally with people with star trackers, they say some of them say they can get 3 minutes. I don't think I would even bother trying to do that, but I would say a minute and a half would be wonderful.
It probably depends on the payload as well. They might get 3 minutes with a different payload, a lesser payload maybe.
It may be, and that's why I didn't want to put a ball head on here, because that just added another pound and a half to the whole payload. And here I just simply have I have if you're familiar with the Arca Swiss clamps on the cameras, I have a little what's called a V bracket on here, which allows, its primary purpose is to get me above. Oops, one control. Trying to move all of these controls in the dark is a blast, as I'm sure you all know. Anyway, this allows me to do a little bit of that kind of motion, which may aid in just trying to fine tune it a little bit. But this thing here has a little manual control. You can do a little manual slewing to bring it into place and so on. So I was just looking for ideas or suggestions, really, so I could get up off of this circular mount, because there's only about a 1 millimeter piece of rubber in there on that, what is basically a turning plate. And if I put my quick release on there, I can't turn it through the full cycle. So I have to, just got this little plate, which I happen to have, and put on there to get it up off of the mount a little bit. So I just am going to have to experiment to see what I can get away with in terms of time and payload, really. I'm just gonna have to
You should
experiment.
be
with
okay,
more.
I agree with Joe. You should be okay with a minute. I've gone, with my tracker, I've gone as high as about 4 minutes with
Yep.
a wide angle lens though, with
Yeah.
like
Actually,
something
my
around
wide angle
15
lens,
millimeters.
my wide angle lens weighs more than both of these combined. It's really heavy.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, again,
Yeah.
that depends on the circumstances, but
Yeah.
even with like my 100 millimeter, I could easily do 2 minutes.
Mhm.
The tracker without, super serious polar alignment. There it's always a little, less accurate polar aligning a tracker than it is an equatorial mount.
Sure.
So, but you should be okay with that.
Yeah. And this is kind of fundamentally how it's done, right? Without a ball head. I mean, just basically using this bracket and plate without adding anything on top of it, right? I mean,
Yeah, basically.
using this attitude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
every tracker is a little bit different, like if you look at Ioptron versus, some other companies, I mean, some of them use Vixen style bars, some of them, have proprietary, Ioptrons is kind of like a bottle cap, to move everything in declination. But I mean, you could make a lot of things work, with 1 minute exposures, you've got a lot of latitude, I think.
Yeah.
I think you'll probably be fine.
I also just kind of need to be able to find out where things are that are shootable with this hardware, and how to find them, where they are and how to find them. And I've got books and I've been studying and so on. So part of my problem is I have too many hobbies. It's hard to concentrate on one when you've got 5.
There is an app out right now called Astrohopper. I don't know if you've seen it, but there are a number of YouTube videos on it
Okay.
where you download the app onto your cell phone or
Mhm.
tablet and mount the cell phone onto the mount, and it'll show you where you are. It's kind of like planetarium software,
Yeah.
and it is supposedly very, very accurate and has kind of obviated the need to use things like Argo Novice, and that might be something that you look into. And in fact, there are 3D printed brackets that you can get, I guess, or maybe order, that you can actually attach it to certain lenses and whatnot. And I'm not certainly
The
not an
collar,
expert
so
on it.
they're turnable. Yeah, I've seen those. I think if
Yeah.
yeah.
So I would look into like a YouTube video on Astrohopper to just give you an idea, because it's boy, it seems like a keen idea, in finding things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could do that with Stellarium as well. Um, and I actually do have a flash mount mount for the camera, so I could or the phone, I could put it on there. The thing is you need 3 Wi-Fis, right? Now you need a Wi-Fi to talk to the internet, you need a Wi-Fi to talk to the camera, and a Wi-Fi to talk to the tracker. So
I
it's
think
like,
with the Astrohopper, I
yeah.
think you might need the Wi-Fi only to do the initial calibration on a star.
Okay.
And then after that, I think it uses inertial
Mhm.
guidance or whatever
Geo-
inside
yeah.
the phone itself to
Mhm.
tell you where you
Oh,
are.
okay. Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm not an expert on that, but I've seen a couple videos on it. Seems promising.
yeah. Just turn on the accurate GPS and so on. Yeah. They must have, if that works that well, they must have solved the problem of uh, all the magnetic metal stuff all around, right? Because you could use a compass, but you can't use a compass because once you set everything up, the compass goes wonky.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll play with it some more. The hardest part probably is finding a reasonably clear night. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's just, if I could just find a few stars peeking through the clouds, if I could get Polaris line up and then find some stars anywhere, you know, just to see if I can track them. Not even worry about what the target is, just see if I can, you know, track stars and keep them clean and how long I can go and how well I can manage the exposure.
Well, good
I did
luck
see
with it.
one really nice meteorite the other night when I was sitting out there trying to figure this out. I woke up
with
the
that.
other morning here around 4, and I looked out the window and I couldn't believe how clear the sky was here, right in King of Prussia. And so I went out, and that's when I saw it. What was it? Jupiter and Mars together.
Yeah, yeah.
And I couldn't believe how clear it was. And it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. It's like you only had a half hour, and it takes that long to get everything out and set up. Uh, but it was neat. It was just wonderful to just sit there and watch it. That's what I was saying about, you know, just the thrill of being out under the sky at night.
Does anyone have any new images or anything they want to share?
Unfortunately, I haven't had any clear
No.
skies to get any. I've,
I have a
I had
couple.
my sea star out, I guess it was a week ago. That was the first night in over a month. And that's my quick setup, you know, for taking advantage of a couple of hours of a window or whatever, you know. Hasn't been worth it, but tomorrow night and Friday night will look real promising.
They do. They do.
What do you have, Joe?
I have a couple shots that I've taken over the last few months. I mean, it's been pretty difficult to shoot anything with the clouds, you know, but I have a couple things I shot earlier in the year and a couple lunar shots. If you want me to show them,
Yeah, I shared
Um,
with posting.
okay.
Should have it.
And I have a Milky Way shot. You've probably seen enough of those.
I have a question.
Go.
Okay.
You,
The little thing with the gradients triggered something in memory. Imaging. It's only happened a couple of times, but let's say I've got a sequence set up in my ASI Air where I'm going to, let's say, shoot 4 or 5 hours on one target. I've noticed in the live stack that after a couple of hours, I get a picture of bullseye, you know, a target with a bullseye. I get a concentric, looks like bullseye or somebody throwing a pebble in a body of water. Similar in color to what the image might be radiating out into the dark areas. It doesn't show up when I go to stack the images or whatever, but it's showing up in the live stack. Any idea what that could be? Is it some kind of reflection or what?
Is that a pet cat over your shoulder?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's Mac.
That's a
Short
big
for
cat.
MacGyver. Yeah, he's my buddy.
yeah, I'm not sure what you have
In
it.
other words, okay,
Joe was going to
let's give you an
lunar
example.
stuff, but maybe after we could, if you have an example of it.
No, I don't. I would have to look for it, and it would take too long to find it. But
My quick hunch is it's overstretching in your live stack preview.
okay,
Just a quick hunch.
it did it, and it's usually a small target, like the Iris Nebula. I remember that one. It did it in and it does it
Back in
similar
focus, John.
in the color of the nebula.
That's how I focus my telescope.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Did you have the images, Joe? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll share them. I'm sorry. Here you go. Oh, PowerPoint. Okay.
I want to see the Stevens Quintet, Wayne.
As soon as I can get them processed.
That's exciting.
Yeah, Wayne.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm trying to. This is just, can you see it? That okay?
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually, just the crater Tycho. Actually, I think put that in the newsletter I think it was in the newsletter last month, but,
I think it was last month, yeah.
yeah, this is with a 174, and I shot, the color data with a Canon camera and added that, a little bit just to show the contrast. That's kind of an interesting crater, and one of the hallmarks of it, which we don't really look at too much, is that dark halo, which is believed to be mantle material. So take a
Very-
picture of it, but this is just a shot of the lunar highlands, and Flavius, of course, in the center. And that one large crater on the rim towards the top, that's actually the crater Porter, named after Russell Porter. Kind of interesting. I didn't know that.
Which
but-
one is it, Joe?
The one, I don't know. Can you see the cursor? Right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
that's Porter, named after telescope maker and Arctic explorer and designer.
Fairly decent sized crater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad. And supposedly these craters in the middle, each one of them in a line is slightly smaller in diameter and is kind of, some people use it as a test of seeing. But I don't know the diameters offhand. But anyway, let's see. This is just Schroeder's Valley, Valles Schroeteri, with a couple. This is Aristarchus and Herodotus, and I think that's Schiaparelli, and kind of a complex rill system
Yeah, it's a
with
neat
some
rill
funny,
system.
funky colors, And what I did was I just tried to process it to kind of hyper accentuate the colors. But this is in Oceanus Procellarum, which is way over. Like if you're looking at the moon, it's like way over at the left, almost at the left border. And they think that this complex, after Oceanus Procellarum was like blown out by the asteroid, this complex kind of filled a lot of the lava in there. And this is kind of the remnants of it. So I thought it was a little bit interesting. Just to,
Very cool.
so, and I'll just finish this up real quick. I know it's getting late. This is 4565.
Yeah.
Actually, just taken from my deck. A little larger. I guess the short focal length that I'm using doesn't really do it justice. I'm shooting at like 621 millimeters. So it's kind of a short focal length.
Yeah, it's neat to see it in context, though. I like it.
Yeah.
Even with
Yeah.
the surrounding space, it has a cool look. Even if you go back to the previous one where it's
Yeah.
the full
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah. So
It's
All the
pretty
red
neat.
dots are stars.
yeah, believe it or not.
Any idea why
So-
they're red?
Yeah, I guess they are.
Mhm.
Probably a little too much saturation, but
Oh, all right. Okay.
yeah.
So cool.
So
Are you
it's-
shooting like F2 or something?
F2.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so cool.
It's just 106 and a couple galaxies around it. And 64 from
Black
64.
eye. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
Like
I think
black
that's
eye.
it. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. So
Nice.
You got
I'll
some
get
good
out of
data.
here.
Nice.
thank you.
Nice. Very good.
That's so cool. I was really weirded out when I saw color on your moon in the beginning. I was like, how'd you get color with that camera? I was like,
Yeah, the colors there, it's just so subtle, So I was just trying to bring
really
it
adds
out
to it.
a little bit. Trying to
like
get out of
that.
the screen. I'm really sorry.
That's cool. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
I don't know if you guys remember last month, I showed that single frame of that comet, the Pan Star is the one that was like going away from when I was at that Molly Stark State Park up in Vermont.
Yeah.
But
so.
I wound up stacking that I guess 2 weeks ago or so. So it's about I could show that. It's about 50 minutes worth of data.
Yeah.
I think this comet was like 12th magnitude or something like that. It was really, really faint. So on a single frame, you really couldn't see any tail. Like, I mean, it was a tiny little tail. But where am I here? Go away. So this is
There it is.
this is it. 50
Yeah.
minutes of that comet. This was up near I think it was off of Cygnus. And what I was really, it's even caught Tracy's eye, was really cool were these dust lanes in the Milky
Yeah.
Way.
Yeah, there's a lot of dark stuff in there.
Yeah. And then you can see the tail extends pretty far
Yeah.
out.
Kind of arcs. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I was surprised. I wasn't expecting to really see any tail
Huh.
because like I said, it was in a single frame, it just looked like a fuzzy dot. It looked like a fuzzy star in the middle.
Wow.
And this was a dark site. This was it goes around 21 with the with my SQM-L meter, the narrow field of view sky quality meter. I was reading around 21.65 at the zenith at around midnight.
Hmm.
And I think this is annotated. And these LDNs are supposedly dark nebulae. I turned them on, but I'm not sure what I need to turn on in terms of the solver to kind of pick up what these really are, because I'm not sure what these outlines are necessarily for. But this is the comet here, obviously. So
50
Yeah,
minutes.
what did you shoot that with?
Yeah.
this is with my TV85 with the ASI 2600 MC and my the AM5 mount. That's all I brought with me when I was on that trip, because it was supposed to rain the whole week we were away. We were away like 9 days. It was supposed to rain, but and it didn't. And this night was actually fairly good. It was the transparency wasn't that great, but it wasn't raining and it wasn't cloudy. So I set up the telescope and shot it. It's the same night that I shot part of the data for this. It's the same night I shot. So this has about 2 hours worth of data from that site and about 3 hours from my backyard. This was what I think I showed this before, or I posted the one in sort of false color, just as an experiment. I think I may have posted that a month ago or so. But this is the RGB version of that shot with the same equipment, the North America Nebula. So that's it.
Ooh. Very nice.
Very good.
And I haven't been able to find that the Olbers comment. I don't know if anyone's had any success with that. I've gone out. I don't know if it's just because the transparency hasn't been good, but
It's relatively low. It's tough.
yeah. But even so, I've gone out with binoculars multiple nights, and it's sort of like I scan all over where it should be, and either I'm comet blind or it's just fading into the background. Has anyone had success with that?
Haven't.
I have not.
I haven't been out.
So, have you done anything, Steve? Have you shot anything?
Absolutely nothing in the past month. Between the weather, family obligations, and just other.
Yeah,
Hasn't been easy.
I'm hoping, and I can't be out in the hot sun. I just can't do it. So I'm hoping this month to be able to get going on some things. The weather will be nicer. So we'll see.
Starting to
Steve,
cool.
how's your telescope?
So the C6 has been moved and it's no longer polar aligned. And in place of that is a pier in the ground. So I sunk a pier like Tom's, four by fours, and I'm building up all new equipment on that.
Okay.
So when I get to it,
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Very
I
cool.
messed up my C6 the other night. I was really upset. I was using a 9 1/4 for a while, and I wanted to set it up for traveling. And Steve, I got that little, the anti-dew ring
Yeah,
for the corrector.
it's
So I
great.
put that on, and obviously, even though I didn't have to take the corrector out, I wanted to make sure the collimation was fine. So I went out one night, and it wasn't a good night for imaging. There were some clouds coming through here and there, but it was the scene was fairly good. So I thought, well, let me tweak the collimation while I'm out here. So I got it pretty good, and I actually took some lights. There was a stretch of maybe like an hour or so where it wasn't cloudy. So I took some lights, and everything was fine. So stupid me, like shoot myself in the head. The next night I go out, and it's a better night, and I thought, let me just check the collimation. And I wound up, because I when I did it, it was just a tiny bit off, but it was certainly good enough, right? And I thought maybe I could get that a little better. Totally
I
screwed it up.
can't tell you how many times I've done that.
Like it's screwed up. I got so far whacked out of collimation that I literally took the whole thing down, brought it in the house because I'm going to use the artificial star. And the thing that I think got me going down this path of no return was the seeing wasn't good. And I'm trying to do fine tuning collimation in a dodo head, thinking, that I could do it because I'm just tweaking it in. I was wound up chasing the seeing, and I just it went out of control to the point where it was like inside of focus, it would be fine. Outside of focus, like the offset, the dark spot would be pinned to one corner. So after what, I was out there, about an hour and a half or 2 hours, making it worse.
Yeah,
Just took everything in, and I said, another time.
right.
Poor Tracy.
I know, exactly.
I'm only kidding.
No, you're right. Yeah, Gary was not a happy Gary. It wasn't the smiley Gary that walked in.
You're right,
Oh,
Jim.
such
Poor
problems, right?
Oh, right for the peanut gallery.
I heard that.
I don't know how many times, I've had to relearn to myself, leave well enough alone, and then somehow you forget.
Yeah.
So one of my long range plans is to turn the C6 into a F2.
Oh, wow. You gonna put are you gonna change out the secondary for the
Yes.
star?
Yep.
Wow.
So that's part of the long range plan.
What camera would you use?
Probably the 533. I think I'm not sure. I would have to look at the numbers, but the 533 is all around good camera.
Yeah, I'm just wondering in terms of the size of it.
Yeah, no, I
compared to
know.
the 6-inch.
I'd have to, do the math on that.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I might have to use a 183 because it's got smaller pixels, but
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, you got to keep us posted on that.
yep,
Cool.
Cool.
Very cool.
that's the Hyperstar.
You're going to go with the stuff from Starizona?
Yes.
Version 4, I guess.
Is there
Yeah.
different versions on it?
Yeah, I think the current one is the version 4. I have a version 3
Okay.
for my C11, but the version 4 is supposedly much better off-axis in terms of this off-axis performance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep us
I
posted
didn't know
on
that.
that. I'll be watching you closely on that. That's an interesting experiment. What would it be around F2 and change or something? What would it?
What they claim, yeah.
Wow.
Do you need to use a dedicated, I guess you need to use a dedicated camera with that for an F6, for a C6.
What do you mean
Yeah,
by dedicated?
You couldn't use a DSLR, I don't think.
Oh,
but-
I don't even do that.
Oh, okay.
No, that's
Yeah.
Stone Age to me.
Yeah.
You guys
Right,
who are
right, right.
doing that and chiseling, stone tablets, that's before my time.
Wow.
Call me a caveman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm picturing a DSLR covering up like
Yeah, really.
80% of the
Oh,
opening. Clear out.
right. Nothing's gonna get through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Ross is the same way, and they said even if you use a dedicated camera on the Rasa, I guess it's the 6 or even the 8, I think, they don't want the diameter of like a ZWO to be, I think it's more than 3 inches,
Yeah.
obviously. Anyway,
But Quiv, the lazy geek,
Hmm.
took one of his C6 and did the same thing with it. He's had pretty good success. Have you ever watched him on YouTube?
yeah, in Tokyo,
Yeah,
in Tokyo, no less.
He's a lot of
Portal
fun.
9 skies.
downtown Tokyo.
He made a showing at NEAT this year, didn't he?
You should show the group that. She just showed me, I've been asking for like peach pie like all summer. And we sort of missed the first round of peaches. We were in Lancaster County over the weekend visiting my brother. You gotta, here, I'll move the camera. Don't drop the pie.
Oh, yeah, don't drop the pie.
Can you get the, oh, no,
Oh.
further away maybe. Oh, you know what it
Whoa.
is? It thinks it's the background.
You need to draw a face on it.
No, I got to get rid of that.
So Gary, how are you
Sorry.
gonna get pieces to all of us?
Sorry.
Yeah, right.
No, put it on my head. That'll here, bring it over. There you go.
You guys are
Focus on
wild.
my face. There you go.
Here it
Don't burn
comes.
my head. It
Pie
just
head.
came out of the
There
oven.
it is.
Oh yeah.
There it is.
Oh my
There it
goodness,
is.
it's still
Oh,
hot.
man.
Wow.
You're a lucky man, Gary. You
Look
are
at
a
it.
lucky man.
Beautiful, beautiful.
She said, I'll probably drive you nuts because I'm going to be making it while you're on the call, and then you're going to smell it baking. So I've been sitting here, and the oven's right over there, and it's like my stomach is. Now I have to wait for it to cool. So, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, beautiful.
Anyway, really good seeing everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a question, Gary. SQM meter, what would you recommend?
I'm sorry, say again for what?
I'm looking at getting an SQM meter. What would you recommend?
I like the SQM-L, the little narrower band. I think it's a 20-degree field of view, something like that. It's that
Unihedron.
Who makes it?
Unihedron. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
You got it, John?
Yeah, it's coming. These are the club has these. Talk to Dan McCauley. He's building a custom one with data
Yeah.
logging. You want to be a beta
Yeah,
tester.
exactly.
This is a simple push and go. It's not super calibrated, but it's good.
Yeah, I think it's plus or minus a tenth of a magnitude per square.
Yeah, it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, a number of club members have them, and a lot of times if we're out at the same, like Alan Purdy and I, when we used to go to Frank's, we would typically set up next to one another. We would usually take readings, and then we were usually within a tenth or two.
Okay.
I think mine was a little less sensitive. I think mine read lower than his by like a tenth.
Yeah.
But it's close enough for jazz, as they say.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Anyway, I'll catch you guys later.
All
I
right,
think.
Night, you
Yeah,
guys.
getting late.
All right.
Pie's waiting for you.
Yeah,
Take care now.
I have to do laps around the neighborhood to lose some weight so I can eat some pie later tonight.
Have fun, Gary.
Yeah.
Take care, thanks.
Enjoy.
See you guys.
Okay.